When I first go into a cockpit, I first want to understand what language this cockpit speaks. I've spent a ton of hours in cockpits, and I can tell every cockpit has its own personality.
All aircraft and all spacecraft are fundamentally tools. We use them to accomplish a mission. We have a Boeing 737 or an Airbus 320 that takes us from point A to point B to see our families, right? You can't land a 737 on an aircraft carrier, and you can't put 200 people in an F-18. So you need to design the aircraft or spacecraft to the mission.
The Dragon model was really more for not completely autonomous vehicle with, the future implication of having non-professional astronauts flying in this vehicle. So really designed for a different type of outcome, and that makes this vehicle much more autonomous. There's less real kind of stick and rudder type action, in terms of flying an aircraft.
The computer makes me a better pilot because it can do things that I can't do, and that frees me up to do the things that only I can do. You can't fly Dragon without the computer, but you also cannot fly Dragon without 10,000 people down here on the ground. The people in the control room, the people that built it here in Hawthorne, in Houston, and around the world. We are just the very tiny tip of the spear of the thousands, really tens of thousands of people that not only support, but make it possible to get us up to the International Space Station and back safely. It's a pretty awesome expression of teamwork.
Since Administrator Jared Isaacman took over at NASA, he's been giving special flights to employees who stand out in their area and are exceptional in many ways in his own F-5. And so now, joining us is one of those employees. He's with NASA's Steven Sisloff, who is with the Ground and Missions Operation Manager Daniel Forrestal. Steven.
Hey, thank you, Daryl. We are here with Daniel Forrestal. He is the manager for ground operations and mission operations for Commercial Crew Program. And Daniel, one of your tasks, this is the second crewed launch from Space Launch Complex 40 over on Cape Side. One of your tasks was getting Space Launch 40 ready for human-rated missions. What went into that work?
Yeah, that's right. So SpaceX has been launching rockets from 40 for years before we man-rated it. And so we had to do a lot of hardware upgrades. We had to add a crew access tower, a crew access arm. We had to make sure we had emergency egress systems in place for the crew. And then not just the technical, we had to make sure that the operations were good. It looked similar launching from 39A and 40, but we had to make sure that the operations were seamless and that we had everything ready to go to get the crew up and down the tower and get the launch off.
Excellent. And while you were doing that for Crew 12, you also had to keep in the back of your mind that Artemis 2 was making its mission preparations for its flight around the moon. You share resources in different ways. Mm-hmm. What went into some of the work to deconflict the preparations for those and make sure everybody had the resources that they need?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something that we've been working on since really the end of last summer when we saw that their launch windows were lining up together. It's really unprecedented. We had never had a time with two manned rockets ready to go at the same time. And so just making sure that resources from propellants to people who support both launches to the astronaut crew quarters where we got the crews in quarantine together potentially. We had to take it step by step, make sure that we were ready to go. And we had to run different iterations depending on who went first and in what order and what timeline and how much time separated the two missions. It was a good problem to have. It was a complex problem, but one I hope that we get to do a lot here as the spaceport gets busier in the future.
Definitely, definitely.
Beginning stage 2 cryo-helium vent shortly, spec cloud venting.
And as Daryl was suggesting, you were one of the first NASA employees to take a reward flight, a reward for the service that you've put in, the expertise that you provide, and you flew with Jared Isaacman, the NASA administrator, in his supersonic F-5s. What was that day like? I'd imagine you got a few jealous emails.
Oh yeah, it was incredible. I've gotten lucky enough to do a lot of really cool things here at NASA. Flying in a fighter jet was never on my list, but man, seeing Kennedy Space Center from the air was just a magnificent sight. And then they took us out over the water and we did acrobatics, and it was like a souped up roller coaster out there. And so it was just an incredible experience, was hanging on the whole time, and really honored to be able to be selected to do that, and hopefully something that a lot of people get the chance to do here in the future.
Excellent. Well, congratulations for that. We are going to head back to Daryl and the countdown for Crew 12.
All right, thank you, Stephen. And what Daniel didn't say, but he told me, is it took him a day to reorient himself because his vestibular system, right? You know this as a pilot.
Absolutely, yeah. It is like a roller coaster, it could take a little bit to get your legs back underneath you.
Absolutely. Well, Crew 12 is getting ready to jump in full strength and dive into a full slate of science aboard the International Space Station. Here are just a few of the investigations they'll be working on. This is a compact system designed to produce intravenous saline from drinkable water. The goal, on-demand IV fluids for medical care, a critical capability for future long-duration missions far from Earth. And then there's VEG-06 that you see here. This research examines how spaceflight affects the relationship between plants and nitrogen-fixing microbes. What scientists learn here could help improve food production, not just in orbit, but also for future missions to the Moon and eventually Mars. And speaking of moon missions, over at nearby Launch Complex 39B, well, there it is. 4 astronauts are expected to lift off on NASA's Space Launch System rocket for a 10-day journey around the moon. Launch for Artemis II is currently scheduled for no earlier than March 6th. Launch window opens at 8:29 p.m. Eastern Time. Actually, we know this to be in early March. That date, of course, will depend on what happens with the latest wet dress. Last month, the Artemis II rocket made a major move, rolling from the Vehicle Assembly Building to Pad 39B for the first time. The 4.2-mile journey to the pad took about 12 hours as the moon rocket inched into position. There you see the Firing Room 1 and the team there conducting the operation. A few weeks ago, the teams conducted a wet dress rehearsal, a full practice countdown that loads the rocket with real cryogenic propellant, more than 700,000 gallons in all. The countdown moved through most of terminal count until a hydrogen leak around the 5-minute mark triggered a cutoff. The vehicle was safely detanked. The seals were replaced, those responsible for the leak, and another wet dress rehearsal will be scheduled soon. Orion will carry Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, and Christina Cook, along with Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen, around the moon and back. And Wheels, you are intimately involved with where this Artemis program is going, of course, and that is landing on the moon, as we're looking live at the rocket that will take those astronauts around the moon and in upcoming missions land on the moon. As we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, you're helping train the next generation of astronauts to be able to land on the moon. So what is going on? Talk about that challenge and where we're at right now.
So, of course, our mission back to the moon is going to require, we went back to the Apollo archives and we dug out, we talked to several Apollo astronauts, Charlie Duke and Harrison Schmitt,
wow,
the biggest help to our team so far, just trying to replicate what they did and build on that. So we're learning how to fly helicopters, and so we can do vertical landings and takeoffs. And so to kind of put that into the muscle memory of our pilots, we're also going to have motion-based simulation that will be lunar simulation. And then you'll be seeing coming on the near horizon a lunar lander training vehicle as well, a vehicle that can replicate lunar dynamics in flight. So we're very excited about our training strategy getting back to the moon.
I love, and I'm jealous that you got to tap into the Apollo guys in order to help this. And there's a beautiful shot of the moon from our fine production crew here at the Kennedy Space Center that is manning all these beautiful views that you're looking at today, including there at Launch Complex 39B. For more Artemis II updates, just scan the QR code that is now at the bottom of your screen. It's going to take you to a website which is nasa.gov/Artemis. You'll have all the updates and information that you need to see to understand the mission and follow it closely. All right. Right now, let's send it back to SpaceX in Hawthorne, California for the latest update there.
Thanks, Daryl. And we did just hear that call out that RP1 on stage 2 is completely full. So great news. You're continuing to see some clouds of condensation build up around the rocket there. That is completely expected and normal as part of this fueling process. The Falcon 9 rocket supporting today's Crew 12 launch that you see on your screen right there is a 2-stage rocket designed for the reliable and safe transportation of satellites, cargo, and people, which is the goal of NASA's Commercial Crew Program. At the top of Falcon 9 today, the crew is sitting inside Dragon Freedom.
There are currently 5 Dragon spacecraft supporting human spaceflight missions. That's Endeavour, Resilience, Endurance, Freedom, and our 5th and final Dragon, Grace, which launched the Axiom Mission 4 in 2025. Designed with safety as the highest priority, Dragon is capable of carrying up to 7 passengers to and from Earth orbit.
And Dragon has 16 Draco thrusters that can be used in space to help navigate the spacecraft to its destination, each providing 90 pounds of force. That doesn't include the 8 Super Draco thrusters used for an abort, which are no longer active once the crew is in orbit. Side of that is where the MVAC engine is located. The inner stage connects the 2 stages and houses the center pusher that allows the first and second stage to separate during flight. Below that, we have the first stage, or booster, which when fully loaded holds about 1 million pounds of liquid oxygen and RP1. The first stage makes
Dragon,
up the...
SpaceX for update. Falcon 9, Dragon, and weather remain go. We're tracking no holds against launch today.
Dragon copies. That's great news.
And you just heard it there, a call to the crew inside Dragon Freedom that everything continues to progress well and look good for launch today, now 17 minutes and 19 seconds away. Now, the first stage makes up the bottom 2/3 of the vehicle and has 9 Merlin M1D engines at the bottom, which generate more than 1.7 million pounds of thrust.
Now, to reach orbit, the vehicle needs to go fast, hitting an orbital velocity of about 28,000 kilometers per hour just to keep from falling back to Earth. Now, that's fast enough to lap the Earth in about 90 minutes. About 2.5 minutes into flight, the first stage will separate and make its way back to Earth. Meanwhile, Dragon separates from the second stage and continues its roughly 34-hour journey to the space station. Now, it is early morning out there, but today's booster is heading back to our newest recovery.
Stage 2 LOX load is starting.
Our booster is heading back to our newest recovery site, our landing zone 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, which you can see the graphic there on the screen. It's highlighting the landing zone next to the pad there. This will be our first landing at this new site and the booster's second time returning back to Earth.
With T0 coming up in about 16 minutes, our teams are doing a series of system checks to ensure Dragon and Falcon 9 are ready. Let's check in with Kate on that countdown.
Thanks, Sandra. Overall, it's been a clean march to launch this morning, and we are still on track for an on-time launch. Now, the countdown is the framework that syncs all teams up, and we're monitoring lots of different factors as we get closer to liftoff. If everything goes as expected, we'll see Falcon take to the sky at 5:15 a.m. Eastern or 2:15 a.m. Pacific. And several minutes later, we'll see our very first Falcon 9 landing at LZ-40, our new landing zone located about 1,000 feet away from tonight's launch pad. Both Dragon and Falcon 9 continue to be healthy, and the teams continue to report no issues on either vehicle. Just moments there, we saw the crew sitting comfortably inside Dragon. Now, we wrapped up stage 2 RP loading at T-minus 20 minutes, and stage 2 liquid oxygen or LOX loading began just a couple minutes ago at T-minus 16 minutes and 30 seconds. Earlier, we heard the call out that the launch escape system was armed. That system is designed to propel Dragon away from Falcon 9 in the unlikely event of an emergency during launch. It simply provides a path to safety for the crew. The Eastern Range, which is monitoring keep-out zones among other key flight requirements, also continues to report no issues and are go to support today's launch. As for the weather, the thing we always monitor for our launches, we're tracking a 5% chance of launch weather constraints, otherwise known as 95% good for our target liftoff time. So all in all, we are go for launch this morning. So let's toss it back over to Anna for a status update from Houston.
Hey, thanks, Kate. Back here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, teams continue to work around the clock to monitor activities aboard the orbital outpost. Leading the team inside the room is Flight Director Garrett Hain, and the NASA team here in Mission Control Houston, the SpaceX team in Hawthorne, California, and the astronauts aboard the International Space Station will track the autonomous docking of Dragon Freedom when they enter what is known as joint operations. This will happen when the spacecraft enters what is known as the approach ellipsoid. The approach ellipsoid is an invisible boundary stretching 4 by 2 by 2 kilometers around the space station that helps us monitor all arriving and departing spacecraft. It is essentially the neighborhood of the space station. Once docked, crew members in both Dragon and aboard the space station will pressurize the area between the Dragon hatch and the space station hatch, known as the vestibule. They will then perform a series of leak checks and then work to open the hatches on both the space station and the Dragon. Once the hatches are open, Crew 12 will float into the station to begin their long-duration stay. Following today's launch, we are tracking a targeted docking at approximately 2:15 p.m. Central, 3:15 p.m. Eastern on Saturday, January 14th. About an hour and a half after docking, we do anticipate that the hatches will be opened, and when they enter the orbital outpost, Crew 12 will be greeted by the rest of their Expedition 74 crew and will come together for a brief welcoming ceremony. For now, that's all from us here in Mission Control Houston as the anticipation continues to build for a launch in just under 15 minutes. How's it looking on the Space Coast, Daryl?
Well, it's looking great here. We're 95% go. We have beautiful clear skies and everything remains on track. No constraints as we enter the final 10 minutes. And Wheels, I want to turn to you now. As a former International Space Station commander, you know what it means to hand over a vehicle, a crew, and a station to the next generation of flyers. You also know that this crew, although they know the science they're working on, might end up working on some things they don't even know that they might encounter.
Sure, yeah. I flew with Shannon Walker. Who I believe is listening today.
Love Shannon.
And Shannon's awesome. She's a brilliant PhD scientist. I am not. And so I was doing some science. We were about 2 weeks into a 6-month mission. And I was working my science, and Shannon came to me. She said, the potty's broken.
Ooh.
And so we had a couple seconds of mini panic attack. And then she said, if you fix the potty, I'll do all of your science for the rest of the day. I thought, that is such a deal.
Is that a trade-off?
So it took me about 90 minutes, but we fixed that potty, and I found out that if you could fix the potty on a spaceship, you're guardian of the galaxy.
Wheels the plumber to the rescue.
Absolutely.
Really quickly, we're going to hear some final words from Jessica Meir, the commander, before they lift off. She's got these words composed.
Perfect. Yeah, she's amazing.
we're looking forward to hearing that. And so with just about 11 minutes to go, we'll send it back to Hawthorne for the final steps of today's countdown.
Dragon, SpaceX, confirmed crew displays are configured for launch.
Displays are configured for launch.
We copy. From the entire SpaceX team, it's been a pleasure working together. Good luck and Godspeed, Crew 12. Enjoy the ride.
In a few moments, we will leave the ground, but not the people who brought us here. This mission is the result of years of dedication, preparation, and trust. To the teams at NASA and SpaceX, Roscosmos, ESA, JAXA, and CSA, your work stands on this pad with us. Every test, every checklist, every decision has led to this moment. Thank you for your tireless dedication and attention to detail. We launch not as individuals, but as representatives of something much larger. We carry the flags of our countries and our space agencies, but most importantly, we carry humanity's intrinsic curiosity and desire to explore. Looking around me at the diversity of backgrounds and experiences with me in this cockpit and on the teams supporting us around the planet, it is clear that when we work together, we can accomplish extraordinary things. We stand on the shoulders of giants. This expression is trite, but true. Generations who dared to imagine beyond what they could touch, who turned risk into knowledge, and who left behind a foundation strong enough to push further. These giants also include our families, our friends, and loved ones. You share the weight of this journey in ways that few ever see, and remind us that nobody reaches the horizon alone. When we look back at Earth from orbit, it will be your faces, your voices, and your sacrifices that travel with us. Crew 12 is ready. We are honored to represent our agencies, our nations, and the shared human desire to explore, to look up, to ask what lies beyond, and to go together. We carry this responsibility with humility and with awe. Over to Jack.
In human spaceflight, passion isn't a coincidence. It's a choice. Whether you're welding hardware, programming software, or piloting a spacecraft, every one of us chose the difficult path that got us here today in this moment. Interacting with such a dedicated team is the best part of my job, and I want to say a heartfelt thank you to the drive you bring to this program every single day. Over to Sophie.
Thanks, Jack. As a compliment to what my crewmates said, I wanted to say how important international cooperation is. As humanity, we can achieve great things when nations are working together. The International Space Station is a good example of a huge international achievement that just celebrated 25 years of continuous presence. We, as humanity, can be proud of achieving this together. I'll hand it over to Andrey.
So guys, engage. Поехали.
Поехали.
Поехали. Поехали.
And some incredible, beautiful, awe-inspiring words from our Crew 12 crew inside of Dragon Freedom, now approaching 7 minutes to liftoff. That was wonderful to hear.
Engine chill has started.
It will be about a 9-minute ride to orbit, which is around the time of second stage cutoff today. Dragon and the second stage will continue to coast for a few minutes after that, prior to separation. And on the ride uphill, we will hear a variety of call-outs on performance as we approach the in-orbit portion into the final countdown. We'll also hear some call-outs for various abort zones for both the first and second stage. So we'll be sharing more about those abort zones as we get closer. But just a quick check-in with our fueling here. RP1 is at 100% full. LOX is at 92%.
Stage 1, RP1 load is complete.
Oh, and that call out just right on time. Stage 1 is complete as well.
Yeah, the next milestone coming up will be at T-minus 5 minutes, and that'll be when Dragon will transition to configure for terminal count. That's basically when Dragon will go on internal power. And we're coming up on that milestone in about 30 seconds from now. And then following that milestone, we will begin to get ready for strong back or the transporter erector TE to recline away from the vehicle. And that'll begin just about 30 seconds after that T-minus 5 minute mark.
Falcon 9 tanks will begin pressurizing for strong back retract.
Dragon is in configure for terminal count.
And there's that call out for Dragon configuring for terminal count, as well as we heard Falcon 9 propellant tanks pressurizing for that strong back retraction. So with the TE retraction, the clamp arms, which you can see on your screen, it's just below the Dragon vehicle there at the top of the second stage. Those will begin.
Strong back retract has started.
And now this process is going to begin. The clamp arms are going to open up. Once they are fully open, then the TE, which is that structure right next to the vehicle that you see on the right side, that'll begin to move slowly away from the vehicle. And there you can see on your screen that those clamp arms are starting to open up now. So it will reach full recline by T-minus 3 minutes and 40 seconds. And the TE rolls Falcon 9 out to the pad, raises it vertical, and stays connected through the final seconds before liftoff. It provides fuel, power, telemetry, and command connections between ground systems and the vehicle.
And the next major milestone that we are awaiting this morning is that Stage 1 LOX load is complete. Propellant is loaded late in the countdown, which is intentional because that colder propellant is denser, and denser propellants mean more performance out of the same tanks. The colder it is, the more mass you can move. Before any of that propellant flows, though, the plumbing and engines are chilled down. This prevents thermal shock and boil off when the ultra-cold liquid starts moving. You may hear that referred to as engine chill. Loading wraps in 2 steps. The first stage finishes around T-minus 3 minutes. We'll hear that call out here any second. And the second stage finishes about a minute later. And you are seeing those white clouds of vapor on...
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
Right on time, as expected. Stage 1 LOX load is complete. And you are seeing those white vapor clouds on your screen. This is normal and will continue as we do get closer to launch.
Yeah, and that call out was for...
Dragon is in terminal count and is on internal power.
That call out was for Stage 1 liquid oxygen loading completion, but Stage 2 is still actually loading that cold liquid oxygen, which will wrap up at the T-minus 2 minute mark in just about 25 seconds from now. Once liquid oxygen is complete, that'll mean that there is 1 million pounds of propellant loaded on Falcon 9, and that includes RP1, a highly refined kerosene, and liquid oxygen, which is super chilled to over 300 degrees below zero.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And great call out. Stage 2 liquid oxygen loading is complete. That means that Falcon 9 is fully loaded with propellants.
Dragon is in auto idle.
Now gas close.
Gas closeouts will start in 5 seconds. Expect loud venting.
Great. Gas closeout has also begun just now, so we're isolating all the feed lines for the different gas systems from the Falcon 9 rocket. Those gases will then get vented overboard through umbilicals and the strong back. And actually, if you listen closely, you can hear some of that venting from the vehicle. Obviously, rockets are very loud, and sound can impart pressure loads back on the rocket itself. A ton of water absorbs and prevents the sound from hitting the structure and reverberating back onto the vehicle.
FTS is armed, and Falcon 9 is in startup.
And great call
Dragon
out.
is in countdown.
Dragon's flight computer is now in countdown and configured for launch. Now less than 1 minute away from the launch of Crew
Dragon
12.
SpaceX, go for launch.
Great call out there. Go for launch. At the time of launch, space station.
Dragon, we are go for launch.
At the time of launch, space station will be flying 260 statute miles over the South Pacific Ocean east of New Zealand.
SpaceX is go, crew is go. Let's watch as Falcon 9 takes Crew 12 out into space.
T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition, and liftoff. Go Falcon, go Dragon, and Godspeed Crew 12.
And liftoff. Freedom flies bound for the International Space Station. 1.7 million pounds of thrust now propelling Falcon 9 and Crew 12. Vehicle is pitching downrange and all 9 Merlin vehicles have lit. We're getting good call outs on the first stage performance and propulsion so far.
Plus 30 seconds into the Crew 12 mission on board Dragon and Falcon 9. The vehicle is going to throttle down in preparation for max Q. That's the largest structural load that the vehicle will see on ascent.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Good call outs there.
Stage 1 throttle down.
There's that call out for stage 1 throttle down. Pass through max Q in a few seconds here.
Max Q.
Great news. We have passed through max Q.
Vehicle is supersonic.
That call out that the vehicle is supersonic means it's traveling faster than the speed of sound.
Stage 1 throttle up.
Stage 1 now throttling up.
1 Bravo.
That call out for 1 Bravo
Copy, 1
means
Bravo.
we're in the second and final abort mode for the first stage, continuing to get good performance. The crew is now already pulling over 2 Gs. Next up, we'll have a couple events happening in rapid succession. First is that engine chill on the second stage MVAC engine, and then we'll have MECO, or main engine cutoff, where the 9 engines on the first stage will cut off ahead of the first and second stages, separating from one another. Then the single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will ignite, continuing to carry Crew 12 to orbit, while the first stage begins its journey back to Earth.
The 9 Merlin engines are starting to throttle down and standing by for MECO, or main engine cutoff.
Stage 1 throttle down.
There's that call out. And in just a few seconds here, we will have MECO stage separation, stage 1 flip maneuver for the booster to make its way back to Earth, SES-1, and the start of the boost back burn.
MECO.
2 Alpha.
Copy, 2 Alpha.
Stage separation confirmed. And back ignition.
And incredible views. We've had MECO stage separation. You can see that booster coming back down to Earth, and that MVAC engine has ignited, which you can see clearly there on your screen. And the Dragon spacecraft with Crew 12 is still attached to the Falcon 9 second stage. The next milestone that we have coming up will be the start of the stage 1 boost back burn. And that burn is the first of 3 burns that stage 1 has to help it return back to Earth.
We are now 3 minutes and 30 seconds into today's flight of Crew 12. The second stage of the lone Merlin engine has lit and continues to burn, as you can see on your screen. Stage 2 continues to be performing well with a good trajectory, and will continue firing until we reach about 8 minutes into today's flight. And we're getting our first
Dragon,
view.
SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
Getting good call-outs of the trajectory, as well as our first views of the crew inside Freedom. A few minutes remaining in this burn before a couple of these astronauts will experience weightlessness for the first time. The crew's G-load did dip right when we hit that MECO or main engine cutoff event, and now it's going to continue to build up again until the second stage shuts down. Everything's still continuing to go well. Now 4 minutes and 45 seconds into today's launch of Crew 12.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
Second stage will continue to fire until close to 9 minutes into the flight, which will accelerate Dragon to more than 17,000 miles per hour and place our crew in orbit. This Merlin vacuum engine can produce over 220,000 pounds of thrust in the vacuum of space.
Meanwhile, the first stage booster is now on its way back to landing zone 40. Stage 1 is coasting, has already coasted to apogee, and the grid fins are helping to guide it back to Earth. And we've already had the boost back burn, so the next event coming up will be the entry burn. That will be 3 of those 9 M1D engines reigniting, and that helps slow the vehicle down as it's re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. Once that entry burn concludes, we use the drag.
SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
We use the drag from the atmosphere to help slow the vehicle down until landing.
Dragon copy.
And that entry burn is coming up in just about 20 seconds from now. Falcon 9 does have a heat shield that is designed to protect the engines in the vehicle from that combined thermal and aerodynamic loading during max entry Q, which is the moment of max stress on the vehicle during entry.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And you've heard that call out. The entry burn has begun.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
And the entry burn has concluded for the first stage vehicle. 2 of 3 burns done. Next up will be the landing burn for the first stage.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
And everything.
Dragon copy.
Everything continuing to be nominal. We're about 20 seconds away or so from that landing burn starting up on the first stage. It'll be a single center E9 engine that ignites.
Stage 1 transonic.
And helps slow the vehicle down just in time to touch down for landing at our newest landing zone 40.
We have just a couple minutes.
Stage 2, FTS has ceased.
The landing burn has begun. Let's watch as Falcon 9 touches down.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And what an excellent view of Falcon 9 touching down for the very first time at landing zone 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station.
Congratulations, that is so exciting to see. And on your screen, you also have a great view of the second stage continuing to fire. That burn is going to last for just about another minute, and then we'll have SECO, or second engine cutoff, which will occur where the lone Merlin vacuum engine cuts off and stops firing.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Once that happens, the second stage will continue to coast for about 3 minutes while still attached to Dragon, until Dragon is then commanded to separate. At this point, Dragon will be flying free with Crew 12 on board and in Earth's orbit.
Shannon.
Copy, Shannon.
And that call out for Shannon refers to Shannon, Ireland, and is our final abort zone in the second stage. Continuing to get good performance. After this second
Stage 2
stage,
shut down.
there we had that call out for SECO and engine shutdown.
Dragon, SpaceX, we have a nominal orbit insertion.
That is great news.
Dragon copy, nominal insertion. Wonderful ride.
Hearing good call-outs following second stage.
System disarmed.
You heard that call-out that the crew is in a nominal or as expected orbit. So again, we're going to continue to coast for a few minutes after SECO to allow those rates and motion from the burn to settle out. There are some small reaction thrusters on the upper part of the second stage that can be used to counteract any residual motion, basically making sure that we're in a stable coast before Dragon separates from Falcon, which will happen, as you see on your screen, right on time. Dragon now flying free.
Dragon separation confirmed.
Dragon copy.
What a great view with the Crew 12 crew on board Dragon Freedom separating from Falcon 9's second stage.
Dragon Freedom, Chief Engineer, Jessica, Jack, Sophie, Andrey, welcome to orbit. On behalf of the entire Falcon team, we thank you for flying with Falcon 9. Dragon will take you from here. Over to our launch director for a few words.
It turns out Friday the 13th is a very lucky day. Jessica, Jack, Sophie, Andrey, it's been a pleasure training with you and preparing for your flight. From the entire Falcon launch team, thank you, good luck, and Godspeed to the crew of Freedom.
Thank you, team. That was quite a ride. Thank you, SpaceX, Falcon 9, and NASA teams. We have left the Earth, but the Earth has not left us. When we gaze at our planet from above, it is immediately clear that everything is interconnected. The vast oceans, the continuous land masses, and all that they contain. We are one humankind here on our shared home planet. This becomes self-evident as astronauts peering down from above, and is a sentiment that would serve us all well to remember back on the ground. We see the thin, tenuous band of an atmosphere solely responsible for supporting all life on this planet, and we know that it is utterly unique, fragile, and must be protected. To those supporting and watching our journey, please know that your spirit travels with us, stitched into the very fabric of all that we do. We hope that our arrival in space reminds all of you that dreams truly can become reality, given dedication, perseverance, and yes, a bit of luck along the way. Crew 12 is grateful and ready for the journey ahead. We're on our way. Andrey?
Центр управления, экипаж Dragon Freedom на связи. Мы на целевой орбите. Все системы работают штатно. С этой высоты наша Земля выглядит невероятно хрупкой и целостной. Здесь не видно границ, только тонкая голубая линия атмосферы, которая защищает все живое. Именно этот вид напоминает нам о главном. Мы одна команда на одном корабле планете Земля. Каждый виток вокруг нашей общей голубой колыбели – это доказательство того, что возможно, когда наши нации объединяют знания. Сегодня наш экипаж и эта станция – это результат работы тысяч специалистов из разных стран. Мы здесь не как представители отдельных государств, а как человечество, которое исследует космос, чтобы лучше понимать и дом. Мы продолжим работу на благо всех. Спасибо за доверие и поддержку. Dragon Freedom, связь с вами.
Thanks to the flight control, engineering, manufacturing, and ground support teams around the world. Successful launches of humans to orbit is a testament to your technical mastery and relentless precision in this unforgiving environment. We fly with confidence because we know that the finest minds on Earth are watching our backs. And I'll pass it over to Sophie.
Thanks, Jack. For Crew
Crew 12. This is our first orbit. For humanity, it's just one small moment in the vast journey of exploring our world and beyond. From up here, we're reminded that we're all connected. Take care of one another, dream big together, and keep reaching higher. That's how humanity moves forward and how we make each other proud.
We copy and appreciate those words, Crew 12. We saw nominal dehumidifier activation and service section Draco checkouts. Nose cone deploy continues nominally as well.
And with
we copy all, thanks, Mary.
With those words from our 4 Crew 12 astronauts, the crew is now well on their way to the International Space Station. That is, of course, their destination where they will be docking tomorrow. You also heard a call out that the nose cone was underway for deploying the hooks or driving to open up that nose cone. It's going to remain open all the way through the journey uphill, as well as once Freedom docks to the International Space Station, and will remain open throughout the mission and will close once the crew does depart about 9 months from now after their science and research mission. So it was wonderful to see Crew 12's launch today. Congratulations to the NASA team, the SpaceX team, and of course to Crew 12. It's great to see you on orbit.
Yeah, again, we did get confirmation that the nose cone deploy is underway. The 6 hooks that hold the nose cone in place during the launch and ascent portions have to retract, and then the nose cone will be able to start to swing open and deploy. This uncovers a number of critical systems for the flight up to the space station, including the forward bulkhead thrusters and the docking hatch. And the call from the core here in Hawthorne indicated that we did have good checkouts of the 12 Draco thrusters around the service section, 4 to go after we get the nose cone open, and the ECLIS, the environmental control and life support system, activated inside Dragon. And we've got a view here, seeing that the nose cone, this is from the forward bulkhead section of Dragon, this nose cone is opening up, and that's what you're seeing on your screen. It's about 30% open at this moment. Soon the crew will be able to get their visors open and get out of their suits and settle in for the ride to the space station. And again, this does take a few minutes for the nose cone to fully open. It's a pretty slow and steady process, but it is underway.
And it has been an exciting and jam-packed series of events following the liftoff of Crew 12 at 2:15 a.m. Pacific time today. Crew 12 is comprised of NASA astronauts Jessica Meir, Jack Hathaway, as well as ESA, or European Space Agency astronaut Sophie Adenot, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Andrey Fedyaev. They are now safely in orbit following an approximately 9-minute ride after a liftoff from Space Launch Complex 40 in Florida. The crew now has a 34-hour journey before they reach their destination, the International Space Station. Docking is targeted for February 14th at 3:15 p.m. Eastern, 12:15 p.m. Pacific, to the space-facing port of the station's Harmony module. Between now and then, Dragon will perform a series of burns as it catches up to the space station, and that first burn will be a phase burn, which will occur about 30 minutes from now.
Human spaceflight has come so far in the last 6 years with Dragon. In addition to flying people, SpaceX's Dragon spacecraft also enables researchers the opportunity to fly critical science to orbit. So far, SpaceX and Dragon have carried more than 1,000 research experiments to and from low Earth orbit, both to the International Space Station and on our free flyer missions. From DNA sequencing to 3D printing studies enabled by Dragon and the space station test a variety of technologies, systems, and materials that will be needed for future long-duration exploration missions. Every mission yields critical research and learnings that help make life both on Earth and in space better. And flights like today's help us continue to lay this foundation for our future among the stars and continue our mission to make life multiplanetary. Now, we'll be signing off from SpaceX for now, so we're going to send it back over to Kennedy Space Center. But before we go, we want to thank NASA for entrusting us with today's mission and thank all of you for being with us today.
Absolutely, Jesse. And we did just get confirmation as well that the nose cone is 100% open and opened as expected. So that was the last major milestone that we were tracking from here on our end. But I do want to say thank you to SpaceX as well for everything that you do and all of you who tuned in as well to support today's launch. We are going to say goodbye from here in Hawthorne until we pick back up coverage for docking beginning at 1:15 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, February 14th, for targeting docking to the Space
Dragon, SpaceX. We saw a nominal nose cone opening, TCS and forward bulkhead Draco checkouts.
Dragon copies.
And again, that confirmation that nose cone is fully open.
There are 5 minutes remaining in our current ground station pass. At this time, you are welcome to introduce your zero-G indicator.
Our microgravity indicator consists of 4 satellites orbiting a crocheted Earth, all handmade elements by Jack Stoddard and my childhood best friend. Each crew member selected a personal symbol or satellite. A tether links each satellite to the Earth, representing our connection to our families, friends, and our one shared home. I chose a panda holding a mushroom, 2 adorable symbols of environmental importance and cultural fascination. Pandas are modern icons of species preservation and international diplomacy, and a pivotal character in my childhood. Mushrooms, or fungi, are the great decomposers, with all life on Earth depending on them to keep our soils healthy and food webs functioning.
I chose a moon that my daughter hand crocheted. Each color woven into the design represents a member of our family or cherished shared activity. By bringing this piece with me, I keep our bond close, allowing me to relive happy memories while looking forward to the ones we'll create when I return.
Bananas are the world's most common fruit, ordinary fruit shared by billions of people across every continent. Yet, on orbit, fresh fruit is rare, so I wanted a playful reminder of kitchens and homes, a familiar piece of Earth drifting weightless with us.
Я выбрал свою часть, потому что именно эта штуковина напоминает мне об одном из художественных фильмов времен еще Советского Союза, который я смотрел в детстве. И я на самом деле предлагаю попробовать вам угадать, что это за фильм. Буду рад где-нибудь от вас это услышать.
We present to you Planet Gaia and her moons, floating here in Crew 12's Dragon.
And with that, we had again...
We copy Dragon, and with that, I can let you know that we had nominal GNC checkouts. Our next burn is our phasing burn per your forward view.
Dragon copies will be monitoring.
A little bit of a description about the Crew 12 zero-G indicator that they selected called Planet Gaia. They each shared some great words about what they contributed as part of that zero-G indicator to let them know that they are officially in the microgravity environment of space. So that was so cool to hear what they each had to say and how they are bringing a piece of Earth back with them and something that's meaningful to them. So Crew 12 is successfully in orbit, and we are targeting a docking tomorrow on the space-facing port of the Harmony module at 3:15 p.m. Eastern. So for now, thank you for joining us here in Hawthorne. We're going to toss it back over to Daryl and Doug at the Kennedy Space Center to wrap up today's coverage.
Welcome back to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. I'm Daryl Nail here with ESA astronaut Claudia Agnure. So good to have you here. Thank you for doing this interview post-flight. The significance of Claudia being here is tremendous. You were the inspiration for ESA astronaut Sophie Adenot, who at age 14 watched you fly as the first French woman to go into space back in 1996. That inspired her on her journey when she said something clicked and she knew she wanted to be an astronaut. You just witnessed your protege take that inspiration from you and fly into space. And I'm wondering what you felt, what you experienced in that moment.
I'm really pleased to be with you. I thought it would have been a quiet joy with pride for Sophie, but it was so hugely emotional to see her with this successful launch. Now, I'm really happy because I know that sometimes girls or boys need some turning point in order to make their dream come alive. And if I have been this one for Sophie, to see today the brightness of the path, that's wonderful.
Incredible. And she shared, Sophie did, during her press conference, that you wrote her a letter before she went to go on this launch. Would you share some of the words that that you gave, that you hand wrote to her?
No, the letter was for Sophie.
Okay, understood.
Maybe she has a letter in her pocket. It was not advices, because I think everyone has his own path to come with a dream. It was mainly experiences, lessons learned, in order to say, don't forget that, or be careful with, and the flight will be long, so take everything for you and enjoy.
Great advice, great advice. As this mission unfolds, and it will be a long one, up to 8 months, how will you be experiencing or keeping track of this mission as she does the science and does the work that she's going to do aboard the ISS?
I'm hugely grateful to the teams that support the experiment and all the work on board. I do remember 30 years when I flew with a Soyuz on the Meir station, who had almost no communication with the ground, but now there is 99% of communication with real-time transfer of data, and it will be possible for her to be close to the family, close to the friends, and close to the teams for the experiments. So we will have some way to discuss and to exchange.
If you had any words that you could say to her now after watching her take off into space, what would you say?
Godspeed, but it's already done. Say enjoy. Say maybe to the crew that they will meet on board a big hello, because that's international collaboration and cooperation. This is wonderful. And then be careful with your program, scientific program, because you are here for that. And enjoy, and please share with us. We need this transmission for inspiration for the younger generation.
What you did for her, she can help pay it forward to the next generation.
Brilliant.
And as it was on the license plate on her vehicle, bon vol, right? Have
Bon
a good
vol.
flight. I don't know if I said it right.
Have a good flight. Bon vol.
Have a good flight, yeah. Claudia Adenot, ESA astronaut and first woman from the country of France to go into space. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your thoughts on the second woman to go to space.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to turn our attention now to the International Space Station, where Crew 12 will join Expedition 74 and head over to NASA's Stephen Sisloff, who's joined by International Space Station Program Chief Scientist Jennifer Buckley. Stephen?
Thank you, Daryl. We are here with another inspiring person. This is Jennifer Buckley, the Chief Scientist for the International Space Station Program. And Jennifer, the crew that's going up there on Crew 12, they're going to perform dozens of experiments during this long-duration mission. One of them is turning potable water into IV fluid. How does that help future explorers?
That's right. Out of about the 250 experiments this crew will perform, one of them is IV Gen Mini. So this is building off of some research we've already done on ISS, learning how to make IV fluid bags real-time on orbit. So commercially, those off the shelf only last about 16 months. So it's really important as we step out into the solar system to explore that we're able to support the crew medically. And so we're going to be doing a tech demo on board.
Outstanding. Now, Artemis 2, that's lifting off in a few weeks. they've, of course, been informed by a lot of the research that's taken place on station. What are some of those ties between space station research and what the Artemis II crew is going to be doing?
You know, Space Station is a perfect proving ground for exploration both to the moon and Mars. So for the vehicle itself, a lot of the life support systems are informed by the research that we've done on ISS, proving out those systems, everything from their onboard toilet to their water-based fire extinguisher to help keep the crew safe, inform how we do space flight safely as we go farther.
Excellent. And when you're looking at Artemis 3, the mission coming up that'll land astronauts on the moon, how is the space station research that's taking place now helping with that mission?
Space station research, not only do we have the astronauts do research, but they also are subjects themselves. So we've learned a lot about astronaut health through the time of International Space Station. We also, on Artemis II, are flying tissue chips with crew cells on them. So this is really neat. It's a program we started on the International Space Station. So we're going to be taking a look at the effects of crew members as they leave low Earth orbit. And then finally, you know, those beautiful views of Earth that we see from the International Space Station are also really science. And so all of the imagery and technology that we've developed from that are going to help us take imagery and analyze the surface of the moon as well.
Outstanding, outstanding. Thank you so much for being here this morning, Jennifer. And Daryl, we will go back to you and Doug and looking at how bright the future looks thanks to all this science taking place.
Absolutely, Stephen, and thank you very much to you and Jennifer Buckley for her interview. Well, we had some social media questions that we weren't quite able to get to, but Wheels has promised me he wants to answer them. So we're going to get those questions to him, and then he's going to post the answers on his X account, Astro Wheels. So thank you for following through on that.
Absolutely. It's actually Astro_Wheels. Okay,
Good note.
So I'll meet you there.
On X. Thank you very much. We appreciate that, Wheels.
Absolutely.
Well, that is going to do it for today's launch coverage, but of course, Crew 12's journey is just getting started. After the beautiful liftoff from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station and a successful trip to orbit, the crew is now on their way, catching up to the International Space Station. Docking is targeted for Saturday at 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time. NASA Plus coverage begins at 1:15 p.m. Eastern Time. And so, Doug, as they get ready to dock with the International Space Station, the excitement of being in space for the first time will be this first 1 day and 10 hours, and then they'll get to work when they get into the space station.
Absolutely. And actually the approach to the rendezvous and docking with the space station, when you first pick up the space station in the windows, it's like, wow, it's like a castle in the sky, you know. It's just quite amazing as you approach the station. It took my breath away seeing how large it was. It's how magnificent it looked in the sky.
And one of the things they'll be seeing, what we've been seeing from the X accounts of the astronauts and the International Space Station, is the solar activity is so high. Have you been seeing some of the northern lights that come from space? Incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Follow these astronauts that are on board, and they're going to be taking some incredible imagery of the lights at the poles, so the northern lights and the southern lights as well.
And they're beautiful on the ground, as we know, but up in space, the red-topped part of those green ribboned waves, it's so crystal clear. It's beautiful. As he said, make sure you check out those X accounts.
Absolutely. On the space station, it looks like rain, like green and red rain. And it lights up underneath of the space station is glowing red and green from the lights. It's just quite amazing. The aurora, yeah.
That is a wow factor like no other. All right. Well, thank you very much, Wheels. You can follow along with Crew 12's journey to the station by listening in on real-time mission audio, the same operational comms used by the flight controllers. Just scan that QR code that you see at the bottom of your screen. You can use your phone, take a screenshot of it, and tune in later on. We'll pick back up with live broadcast coverage about 2 hours before docking right here on NASA Plus. Wheels. Thank you so much for sharing this moment for us, for all your incredible stories and information and guiding us through today's launch coverage. We greatly appreciate it.
It's a great pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
We look forward to hearing more about your work on the human landing system and getting to the moon.
Absolutely. Stay tuned.
You're going to hear more from Wheels. So to all of our guests and our teams at NASA and SpaceX, our production team, for the great job they did today, and to you watching around the world, thank you so much for being part of today's launch. From launch pad to low Earth orbit, we're going to take a look now, going all the way back to the beginning, the moments from suit up to orbit. Have a great morning, everyone. It began inside the historic astronaut crew quarters, where SpaceX teams helped each crew member into their custom pressure suits. Before heading out, the crew paused for a final pre-launch tradition. You see it there, the card game, gathering around the table. It's a way to set the tone and leave any bad luck behind. Then it was time to step outside. The crew walked out to greet family, friends, and supporters, following a path walked by every NASA astronaut since Apollo 7 in 1968. A short time later, the crew climbed into their Teslas, beginning the ride out to Launch Complex 40, escorted by security through Kennedy Space Center and onto the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. As they arrived at the pad, the crew got out and got their first close-up look at the Falcon 9 rocket that you see there. And then they walked across their crew access arm in pairs, first the commander and pilot, then the mission specialist, and then we saw them climb into Dragon and get into their seats for flight. Inside the spacecraft, seats were rotated into position, and the suit leak checks were performed as the countdown continued.
Ignition and liftoff. Go Falcon, go Dragon, and Godspeed Crew 12.
And liftoff. Freedom flies bound for the International Space Station. 1.7 million pounds of thrust now propelling Falcon 9, Crew 12. Vehicle is pitching downrange, and all 9 Merlin vehicles have lit. We're getting good call-outs on the first stage performance and propulsion so far.
Roger, go.
We think about the challenges, come up with the technologies, and push the bounds of the science.
4, 3.
The more ways that we can send humans into space, the better it is for our country and for the planet.
Ready to get to work.
What an amazing view.
From the International Space Station.
Wow. Liftoff. Look at them go.
Spaceflight is a beautiful symbol of humanity.
America has launched.
Reach for these lofty goals, work hard, and look what you can accomplish.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today at the Crew 12 post-launch news conference. I am glad to be joined here today by NASA's Administrator, Jared Isaacman, Professor Daniel Neuenschwander, Director of Human and Robotic Exploration from ESA, Steve Stitch, the Manager of CCP, Dana Weigel, the Manager of the ISS program, and Juliana Scheiman, Director of NASA Science and Dragon programs at SpaceX. Each of our participants will give brief remarks, and then we will open up the floor to those of you here in the room and those of you calling in via telephone. If you want to get into the queue, please press *1, and out of the queue, *2. So with that, I will hand it over to Administrator Isaacman.
Thanks, Bethany. Good morning, everyone. What a absolutely wonderful start to the day. We saw a remarkable Crew 12 launch, a very impressive F9 return to launch site. I'm sure everybody heard that, all while Artemis 2 sits on the pad in preparation for its historic mission. So following this morning's launch operations, Dragon completed its on-orbit checkouts. Nose cone is open, and the crew are now safely on their way to the International Space Station. Teams throughout the agency, SpaceX, ESA, Roscosmos, and more continue to monitor progress of the mission ahead of its docking. I've said it before, I'll say it again, that this mission has shown in many ways what it means to be mission-focused at NASA. So just to recap, in the last couple of weeks, we brought Crew 11 home early. We pulled forward Crew 12 to the launch date today, all while simultaneously making preparations for the Artemis 2 mission, which its next window will open up in early March. That's only possible because of an incredibly talented workforce that we have here at NASA, alongside our contractors and our commercial and international partners. So along this mission, NASA is sending an astronaut into space again into space for the first time. So I want to congratulate Jack Hathaway. This is what he's trained for, and I know he possesses the qualities found in many accomplished astronauts. This crew will continue critical scientific research in the orbiting laboratory, but they will be making history in many other ways. For example, I think this is very exciting, we will have the first spaceship to space station call between the International Space Station and a lunar mission with Artemis 2. Just really think about that, right? It's pretty exciting. I can only imagine what it's going to be like in the years ahead, right? You have multiple space stations that are up there, cruise cargo going to and from the lunar environment, people phoning home from a moon base. It's pretty exciting to think about, and we're taking a nice step in that direction in the mission ahead. In addition, this mission maintains our over 25 years of continuous human presence in low Earth orbit. So the crew, along with the subsequent ones to follow, will absolutely make the most of our International Space Station. We are going to get our highest potential science and research up there with the aim of cracking the code and igniting an orbital economy. So someday we do live in a world with lots of commercially operated space stations in line with our President's national space policy. And with that, I will turn it over to Steve Stitch.
Thank you, Administrator Isaacman, and thank you all for being here on a really happy morning. I'm proud to say we didn't talk about weather much at all after talking about weather for a whole week. We're blessed with really good launch site weather this morning and really good weather down the ascent track, which we've been monitoring all week, and we finally found the right day to launch on Friday the 13th. I understand this is the first time NASA's ever launched on Friday the 13th, so pretty amazing times. Really appreciate all the hard work between NASA and SpaceX and on Crew 12. It's great to get the launch behind us. Of course, that's the first step. The crew's doing well on orbit. Jessica, Jack, Sophie, and Andrey are settling into their kind of off-duty period. They did a phasing burn a little while ago to set up the rendezvous. We'll be docking on Saturday about 3:15 Eastern. There will be another burn late tonight around just before midnight into their phasing burn. You know, we really didn't have too many things to work during the countdown. It was really quiet with Falcon 9 and Dragon. Nothing really off nominal. As Jared said, the spacecraft got on orbit. We checked out the service section Dracos. The forward bulkhead Dracos are firing just fine. All the systems on Dragon are working well, and so we'll just continue to monitor the progress of the vehicle until we get in. Looking forward to docking. Hopefully our teams will get a little rest today. It's been a busy, long week with the launch. I really want to thank all of our partners, U.S. Space Force, Detachment 3, U.S. Coast Guard, Department of War, the FAA, all the agencies that support us. I want to thank the Space Station program, SpaceX, and all our international partners. And I'll turn it over to Dana.
All right, thank you very much, Steve. And thank you all for being here. I would like to extend my thanks and appreciation to the Commercial Crew Program and the SpaceX team for the tremendous amount of work that they did leading up to today's successful launch. And I'd also like to thank the Space Station team for being flexible and adapting all of the onboard plans in light of the early return of Crew 11. With today's launch, we've got docking tomorrow, as Steve said, 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time. That docking will be to our Node 2 Zenith port. Really looking forward to having the crew on board and having the extra helping hands. This will be the second flight for Jessica and Andrey, and the first flight for Jack and for Sophie. So really excited to have them on board. Chris is doing great on board along with the two cosmonauts. He's been doing research, cargo packing, and a little bit of tidying up, getting ready for Crew 12's arrival. When Crew 12 gets there, they'll spend a few dedicated days with Chris going through handover. Top of the agenda is going through the emergency response procedures, becoming familiar with the location of the emergency equipment, and then outfitting the Dragon with some of the standard emergency hardware. They'll also do familiarization work with some of the equipment that they would commonly interface with, toilets, exercise equipment, those types of things. They've got some critical research they'll be transferring for us in the first couple of days from freezers that we sent up with the Dragon. And then they've got a little bit of initial human research work that they'll be doing. And that's critical overall just for our long-term plans to fly longer and longer duration missions and making sure that we're taking care of astronauts' health as we look forward to Moon and Mars, longer durations. One unique thing we're doing for this handover, you know, normally we've got 4 crew handing over with 4 crew, and since we've got Chris doing a little zone defense with the entire crew, we supplemented and had some onboard videos put together. So some of those were from previous crews, and then Chris made some. So when Crew 12 gets up there, they'll also do some video review. As you heard in the pre-launch briefing, we've got a busy few months in front of us on board Space Station. At the end of this month, we'll be undocking the SpaceX 33 cargo mission. Beginning of March, we will unberth HTV X1. We've got a very brief docking sensor demonstration we'll do with the vehicle, then we'll release it. In mid-March, we're planning to do an EVA to finish installing a modification kit to one of our solar arrays. This is called the 2A array, and that's in preparation for upgraded IROSA rollout arrays that are coming up later in the summer. We've got a second EVA in April to install the other modification kit on our very last array, the 3B array. Towards the end of March, our Roscosmos colleagues are going to launch a Progress cargo resupply vehicle. And then in April, we've got the Northrop Grumman 24 Cygnus mission. So a lot going on, as always, very, very busy on board Space Station, and we're really looking forward to having the crew on board. With that, I will pass it over to Daniel.
Okay, thanks, Dana. Let me start by congratulating everybody for this amazing launch. Everything went really flawlessly, so thanks to the teams at ESA, NASA, SpaceX, and all the partners for their incredible work done. My first thought, of course, is going to the crew, and Sophie in particular. This is just the start of a journey. I know that they are very well prepared, and I'm really excited to see the next steps unfold. Sophie will be the first of her astronaut class to embark on a long-duration mission, and she had an incredible journey. I cannot stress enough how well she has been performing in a very short duration of time. Something unanimously underlined by her trainers is her mindset, which is well reflected in the patch of the mission. On top of Crew 12, on Expedition 74 patches, we also have an ESA patch, because we never get enough of those, of course. The name of her mission is something she chose, something she felt aligned. It's called Epsilon, and it reflects the power of small yet impactful contributions and how multiple parts unite to create a whole. A nice message of modesty, underlying that an astronaut is only, in bracket, a part of a wider group, one piece of a complex puzzle. We are really all very proud of her and how she represents ESA, Europe, and France. I also take the opportunity today to reaffirm ESA's commitment to the International Space Station and the peaceful exploration of space. We are here this morning after the launch of 2 Americans, a Russian and a European, as one crew. This is again a testimony of what we can achieve together. The ISS stands as a powerful symbol of humanity. Our meeting this week between NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman and ESA Director General Joseph Aschbacher gave us the opportunity to reaffirm our shared commitment of continuing this remarkable journey. Together, we are already preparing the next chapter, guided by common objectives, increasing the pace of human space flights and creating new opportunities for research and scientific discovery. But low Earth orbit is not our final destination. We also, this night, also SLS on the pad. And I'm confident that through the Artemis program, to which ESA provides key contributions, we are returning to the moon because we want to stay there. And down the road, Mars will follow. Finally, today, from every corner of Europe, we fly with Sophie. And with that, over to Juliana from SpaceX.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here today to celebrate the launch of the Crew 12 mission. As you've heard, Falcon 9 successfully lifted off and safely delivered the Dragon spacecraft and its crew to the intended orbit. And as you also heard, the Dragon spacecraft will be approaching the ISS tomorrow at 3:15 p.m. Eastern. And after the successful docking of the Dragon spacecraft to the International Space Station, the SpaceX team's next big milestone, as you heard Dana mention, is the CRS-33 Dragon return, which we're targeting at the end of this month. So it's also a busy time for SpaceX too. I have a few fun statistics. This launch, the Crew 12 mission, is the 20th human spaceflight mission that SpaceX has launched. Also, when the Dragon capsule docks with the International Space Station, it will be the 51st time a Dragon spacecraft has docked with ISS, or has visited ISS, I should say. Also, the Dragon spacecraft Freedom, this is its 5th flight. It previously launched Crew 4, AX2, AX3, and most recently Crew 9, and now Crew 12. Also, as you heard the administrator mention, this is also a first for SpaceX, where the booster returned to its launch site, its actual launch site, LC-40, and which is, I always like to think that the booster feels like it's returning home when it returns exactly to the launch site. So that's a fun one. And that's something we'll be doing going forward. LC-40 is where our landing zone is. And yeah, on behalf of everybody at SpaceX, we are incredibly proud to support human spaceflight missions and all of the amazing science and research that happens on the International Space Station. So on behalf of everyone at SpaceX, we want to give a big thank you to our partners for their trust in us, and thank you for flying SpaceX. And back to you, Bethany.
Great. With that, we will open the floor to questions. I see we have so many people here in the room. And I also just want to remind the people who are dialing in that you can dial *1 to get into the queue and *2 to get out of the queue. We have a microphone here in the room, so if we want to go right over here.
Hi, JoshDinnerspace.com. Thanks for doing this. Were there any lessons learned from Crew 11 that have informed maybe future pre-launch readiness procedures? Crew 12 got to launch a little bit early. Is there anything in the future, should you need to bring another crew home early, that the next crew on deck will be ready to take over in a different or a quicker way?
Yeah, I mean, the vehicle, we were able to, we were processing Dragon a little bit ahead of schedule the whole time, and so we looked at the readiness of Dragon, and we're able to accelerate it a little bit. We probably could have moved the launch up a little bit more with Dragon and Falcon 9. At the end, when you look at the totality of a mission, it's getting the vehicles, the hardware, and the software ready, and also the crew. And so, in this case, crew training was what drove the date that we selected. So we're looking at all those things. We were working already ahead for Crew 13 and trying to have Dragon ready a little bit early again. We have that luxury right now with our manifest, and I'll see if Dana has anything to add.
Yeah, I would just add that, I mean, we've got 7 people total on board Space Station, and the way we're flying today, we have a cosmonaut who flies with us. Of course, Andrey launched with us today, and then we've always got a USOS crew member, a NASA crew member who's on the Soyuz, and so though it's more challenging with only one set of hands, we do have other folks on board who can help us if we really need extra sets of hands. So the way I look at it, though it's not ideal if you have to bring a crew home early, there's no immediate crisis or emergency. We can manage that. We've flown before with 3 crew on board. So we're fortunate that we have flexibility in our training, our operations, and the spacecraft to make some adjustments. But I don't see us doing anything specifically different in the future per se to, like, let's say, have a vehicle on standby or a crew ready. We're pretty flexible and adaptable, and we'll work towards whatever the situation demands.
And with that, we'll head over here.
Thank you so much for this press conference. Lenka White from RIA Novosti. If I may please to Mr. Jared, as the new administrator, how is your cooperation with Roscosmos going, and what are the plans for the future? And if I may also, how important is it to incorporate AI into long-distance missions? Thank you.
Sure. Well, I guess to start on the AI point, we can work backwards from there. It's incredibly important right now. Recently, we did a demonstration with our Perseverance rover on Mars, where it was undertaking AI operations like autonomous driving and detection, which is going to be just essential for both robotic and crewed missions in the future. I mean, one, just natural transmission delays, is going to challenge, I think, the historic mission control construct there. But our sensors, especially on these robotic missions, are going to gather so much data now that you're going to want to be able to analyze it, interpret it, and make decisions while you're on mission versus waiting for it to necessarily come back, and also determining what data is necessarily important to send back versus which can be discarded. So I think that you're going to continue to see that. In fact, one of the missions to robotic mission to Venus that we're looking at now may be designed right from the get-go to have AI incorporated into its mission software. In terms of a relationship, with Roscosmos, I think that the Crew 11 situation highlights it at its best, right? I mean, that's a situation where we could bring our astronauts home early, knowing that the relationship as it's constructed with our partners in Russia enable continuous operations of the space station in a relatively safe way. So I think that the design of the International Space Station really had a chance, through its international partners, had a chance to really showcase itself over the last month or so. Yeah.
We'll head over to Will right here.
Hi, excuse me, Will Robinson Smith with Spaceflight Now. Thank you for taking the time. To the administrator, during your remarks with Steve Sisloff, you mentioned earlier today, well, I guess yesterday, that there were a series of mini wet dress rehearsals for the SLS rocket. I wonder if you can go into a little more detail on this particular stage of the testing, and if that was able to inform a date for the full next wet dress rehearsal. Thanks.
Sure. So I think we're going to provide additional details on that tomorrow. The teams wanted to have a chance to get together and review the data before taking a position on whether or not we are going to advance to a full wet dress 2 or undertake additional kind of mini tests. this should make a lot of sense, right? On Artemis 1, we were combating hydrogen leaks multiple times on that. We obviously encountered that again on the Artemis 2 wet dress rehearsal. We already communicated through a blog that we replaced some seals, and now we want to do as many tests as we possibly can before stepping into a full wet dress operation again to just gain confidence. We will provide more details tomorrow, at least from some of the early views. We did not see some of the leaks for the portion of the test we were running that at a comparable period during the full Artemis True wet dress we did. So it's an early indication, but we'll share more details as we get into it tomorrow. But I think the idea is we will continue to do everything available to gain confidence going into the full wet dress.
We'll head right up here.
Thank you. Sawyer Rosenstein with NSF. A couple of timing questions. In regards to LZ-40, about how long do you expect the booster to still be up there before it's able to be lowered? And can you still launch from 40 if the booster is vertical? And for the ISS side, about how long do you expect to be able to get back up to full speed after docking, kind of to where you were at that Crew 11 pace prior to the return?
I'll go first. Okay. Thank you for the question. This does afford the opportunities for some pretty cool pictures, I would say, if that's what you're thinking. So obviously we want to make sure, as with every one of our operations, that we only step into that operation if we can do so safely. And so that includes all of the safing procedures after a booster lands, making sure that it's able to be approached by personnel and perform the subsequent operations that need to happen to bring it horizontal and bring it into the hangar. Should we need to perform a launch while the vehicle is vertical on the landing zone, we are able to do so. But nominally, the timelines don't look like that would necessarily be required.
I'd say 5 to 7 days is generally the time period of crew handover. They'll actually start doing some work as they're doing some of that handover. So the first 3 days, handover. After that, they'll be packing SpaceX 33 and getting it ready to come home. So give them about a week, and then they'll be up to speed and kind of working at full pace.
We'll head right up here.
Yes, I'm Bert Dicht with the National Space Society, and for Administrator Isaacman and any of the other panels. It's an exciting week here with the Vulcan launch, SpaceX Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon, and with Artemis 2 on the launch pad. While it didn't align, there could have been a chance where you had 2 crewed launches in a matter of days. So hopefully that will happen soon. Just wanted to see what kind of preparations in terms of mission management, infrastructure, human resources in order to make that happen in the future.
Well, this was one of the first things I was briefed on after being sworn into this role is what do we do in a circumstance where we are launching 2 human missions from Kennedy Space Center in short proximity. I mean, everything from 2 different suit-up rooms, which we have available to us here, we were giving consideration to how we would stage our recovery forces for all the various scenarios. And I was thinking, what a great problem to have, right? Now, of course, obviously, we went through the motions, and this is why we kept Crew 12 in a position where they could launch as early as February 11th. Obviously, took today's window, and then we were not going to really target a specific date until after we completed wet dress, and that conflict was alleviated. But it is one that I certainly hope we have with great frequency going forward.
We'll continue over here with Spectrum.
Thank you for taking our questions. Administrator Isaacman, you've been on your own crewed missions in the past, but how did it feel to see the first crewed mission as NASA's new administrator today?
That is a good question. Well, it was obviously wonderful to be back here at Kennedy Space Center and see everything in action from slightly different perspective, for sure. Felt like I might have had the second best seat I could have today as I was going into the operations, but. It was just wonderful to see everything in motion. Felt very privileged to be here alongside an extraordinary team preparing for an excellent mission like Crew 12. So it's great to watch it.
We'll head right up here.
Dmitry Kirsanov of TASS. This is for administrator, if I may. If I may just press you a bit further on your cooperation with the Russians, what specifically do you have in mind, and do you plan to hold talks with your counterpart, Mr. Bakanov, anytime soon, and perhaps travel to Baikonur?
So I believe everything you just asked is in some degree of work right now. I am certainly planning to attend the next Soyuz launch, crewed Soyuz launch. Good friend that's going to be going up on that mission, so it'd be hard to imagine to miss it. But I know that we're making preparations for a discussion with my counterpart at the earliest opportunity. The space station is going to still be up there for a long time. There's a lot that we need to accomplish together in the years ahead. Certainly a lot of opportunity for good conversation.
And we'll head over here to the back. Yes, yeah, right there.
Thank you so much. Emily Martin from Ciel Espace France. Thank you so much for taking my question. Do you already know who's going to perform the EVA on board? And is Sophie's going to perform one? Thank you.
We are still working on the crew tasking for that, for the 2 EVAs with all of the replans that we did, so we'll get that out.
Maybe just to complement, she's definitely ready, but as Dana said, it will be part of the planning.
We'll go over to you, Marcia.
Hello, Marcia Dunn, Associated Press for Administrator Isaacman. How late into February can you keep dealing with potential fuel leaks and other tests on the pad before you could, you really need to start trying to launch in March? And I've heard the 3rd or the advertised 6th. I mean, what's the earliest in March you can actually launch Artemis 2?
Well, I would say first we have a lot of time ahead of us. I mean, if you think about the last wet dress and the proximity to the opening of the launch window in February, I mean, that was rather condensed compared to the timing we have available now. So we can do a lot of confidence tests as we did yesterday, and I expect we probably will. We could undertake more than one wet dress if necessary. We're going to make absolute most use of the time that we have leading up to the start of the window. You are correct. We are considering if there are earlier opportunities. I think from my perspective, same. Let's get through a good wet dress, and then we can consider what date we may want to target. But that could potentially include the 3rd.
Irene.
Thanks. Irene Klotz with Aviation Week. Jared, there was a report recently that OMB had directed some science funding to either suspend or halt. Can you explain what that is, and if that's actually missions or is that some logistics?
So I think I'm aware of what you're referring to. I mean, that was really incorrect reporting. Very routine correspondence between the CFO office and our various mission directorate and centers as we were gathering information as part of the apportionment process. So I would definitely, anyone who has any questions as it relates to those science missions, to take a look at the NASA official quote that was provided to the reporter, although I don't think they actually included the entirety of it. Makes very clear that there are no missions that are being canceled or terminated. This was entirely an information gathering exercise that has been completely routine. I can tell you any of those quotes that go out before I have an opportunity to review in advance and fully stand behind.
And we have one question in the back over here.
Thank you. Ken Kramer, Space Up Close. Thanks for doing this. It was a spectacular launch. Congratulations to everybody. I'm a scientist, and you just talked about science, and I'm a chemist. I want to ask you about Mars, since you already mentioned Perseverance. She's collecting samples to bring back. It's the best chance to find life beyond Earth. The budget was cut this year. I'd like to know, what is your position on Mars sample return? Are you going to fortify it? Is it going to be a priority, I hope?
Well, I mean, first, just to clarify, I mean, the cancellation of the Mars sample return as it was constructed, predated even this year's budget cycle. The way that was constructed was not economical, nor would it have been really achievable. All that aside, am I interested in getting those samples back? You bet. I mean, I've said it many times. This is an opportunity for what could be the most consequential discovery in human history. And I do believe that Congress made available additional funds in the latest appropriations for us to begin, evaluating various possibilities on how we could potentially retrieve those samples. So it's certainly very early, but we've been given the opportunity to rethink our approach, hopefully be able to do it, in a very affordable, and if there is such a thing as an expedited way when you go to Mars and back. So.
And we have a question online from James Dowling-Healy from West Hartford Community Interactive. So we'll go to you, James.
Good morning. James Dowling-Healy, West Hartford Community Interactive. My question is for Administrator Isaacman. Given the launch of this new mission and your robust public relations efforts, will we see the return of any of the paused outreach methods, such as the web version of Spot the Station, This Week at NASA, NASA TV, or any of the archived social media accounts? Thank you.
I mean, we are certainly committed to being as transparent as we possibly can and keeping the public informed of all the exciting, undertakings we have at NASA right now. So I can't necessarily comment on any of the specific avenues you mentioned, and I think it's probably very unlikely that we're bringing back any archived social media accounts. Even if it's a relatively unpopular opinion, I actually think we should be consolidating further and trying to get more quality out than general quantity. I think that's one of the best ways to get the public engaged in our mission. But all that said, I can assure you, and as somebody who is a outside observer for a long time, I'm certainly committed to increasing the rate of information sharing with the interested community.
And it looks like we have one last question in the room, so we'll go over here.
Hi, Aaron Gilchrist with NBC News, and my question, Administrator, is actually in the same vein as the one you just got. I'm curious about your message to folks who are not astrophiles, people who maybe got up this morning and saw their first launch ever, or they woke their kids up to see their first launch ever on all the platforms where it was available. What do you say to people to help them understand why these launches, these missions are important, why they are of value to folks who maybe aren't astrophiles?
I mean, it's to me, I guess it's just, I have a bias here, but it's just hard to imagine that there are that many people who haven't looked up at the sky at night and wondered what's out there or not. I mean, we here at NASA are leading the greatest, what I think is the greatest adventure in human history, and what we may find, what we could learn, which could have meaningful benefit back here on Earth, as it's proven throughout the entire history of the space program. New technology, economic potential, new sources of energy and power, and just satisfying the curiosity that we all might have. I think that as a society, we invest an awful lot in trying to address, the challenges of the day, the imperfections that are in life, and you can always put a small percentage, as we do, in trying to make progress for the future and to inspire our kids to want to grow up and dream bigger. I think that's what we do here.
And with that, if there are no more questions, we will wrap up this press conference. On the screen, you will find a link that will take you to our Crew 12 coverage, and you can find all of our highlights from today's launch. Thanks for joining.
Inside the historic astronaut crew quarters, where SpaceX teams helped each crew member into their custom pressure suits. Before heading out, the crew paused for a final pre-launch tradition. You see it there, the card game gathering around the table. It's a way to set the tone and leave any bad luck behind. Then it was time to step outside. The crew walked out to greet family, friends, and supporters, following a path walked by every NASA astronaut since Apollo 7 in 1968. A short time later, the crew climbed into their Teslas, beginning the ride out to Launch Complex 40, escorted by security through Kennedy Space Center and onto the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. As they arrived at the pad, the crew got out and got their first close-up look at the Falcon 9 rocket that you see there. And then they walked across their crew access arm in pairs, first the commander and pilot, then the mission specialist, and then we saw them climb into Dragon and get into their seats for flight. Inside the spacecraft, seats were rotated into position, and the suit leak checks were performed as the countdown continued.
Ignition and liftoff. Go Falcon, go Dragon, and Godspeed Crew 12.
And liftoff. Freedom flies bound toward the International Space Station. 1.7 million pounds of thrust now propelling Falcon 9, Crew 12. Vehicle is pitching downrange, and all 9 Merlin vehicles have lit. We're getting good call-outs on the first stage performance and propulsion so far.